Hi, everybody. Welcome to NewsNite for Friday, October 21st. Great to have you along this week. Ohio in the national headlines after wild animals are set free. Should the laws be changed to protect all of us for those who decide to keep these kind of pets? Walmart back in the headlines as Copley and Fairlawn try to hammer out a deal on Rothrock Road. And what should we expect in the one and only debate for Akron's mayor? These stories and more next on NewsNite. Great to have you along this week for hopefully some great conversation. Great to have along with us Stephanie Warsmith from the Akron Beacon-Journal. Also glad to welcome Steve Hoffman from the Akron Beacon-Journal. And always great to see Jody Miller, freelance contributor and journalist, here with us today. Ohio in the national headlines again, first with the Amish attacks 10 days ago, and now who would have ever thought this? Wild animals purposely set free. Who would have ever thought that a resident had this many on their property?
Well, this is part of an ongoing, unfortunately, string of stories, one of which was in Copley Township in recent years, a man who kept a number of wild animals on a preserve, I guess you'd call it. There was an incident up near Cleveland, in a Cleveland suburb last year, in which a handler for a man who had wild animals, including bears, was killed by a bear. So many people feel that this was kind of an accident waiting to happen, and Ohio has very, very lax, virtually non-existent regulations on this sort of thing. So there are many people in Humane Society, organizations like that, who have feared just this sort of thing. This case was obviously somewhat unusual.
Right. Well, and Steve's absolutely right. The animal rights activists have said for years that we need some legislation. You know, this is a problem that has gone amok. And I don't understand why legislators didn't take and do what needed to be done in terms of either licensing the people who, in fact, have exotic animals. There's no registration in the state.
How would you license them, though?
Well, I don't know how you would license them, but you've got to have some control over them. If there's an exotic animal that is purchased and brought into the state, there's got to be a way that the state can track them. Because right now, Ohio has no idea who's got these animals, how many are out there, and my understanding is there's a tremendous black market for, baby tigers, baby leopards, baby monkeys, and the problem is they grow up and they are wild animals, and the ability to take care of them sometimes is far beyond the means of the people who get them and think that they're going to be pets. They aren't pets. They're wild animals. Mm-hmm. And the state, I think, needs some legislation to make sure that an incident like this just never happens again.
Did you take a Copley as soon as you heard about this?
I definitely did, and one of the things that's unfortunate as well is that John Kasich had allowed an executive order that Ted Strickland had in place that would have prevented this man from having these animals. It would have said that if you had any animal-related convictions, you can no longer have exotic animals. This man had several convictions. So I do think that they need to look at executive orders. There's a committee that has already been studying this, but there needs to be something done because this was just tragic what happened here.
You regulate this like you regulate anything else. I mean, you have a board, you have standards. I'm not saying the enforcement of something like this is necessarily easy, but if your standard is only to enforce things that are easy to enforce, there'd be a lot of things we wouldn't deal with. A drunken driving being one of them, very difficult, But we try to avoid situations. This guy, apparently opened the doors and then committed suicide. Now, obviously, it's pretty difficult to guard against, that kind of very odd circumstance. But the very fact that he had so many exotic animals in one place at one time, I mean, there were 15 Bengal tigers, I believe, an endangered species. So somebody that has that number of animals in one place, there should be some regulation on that kind of activity. And Jody's right. I mean, people get these little cubs oftentimes when they're babies, and they bottle feed them, but then they grow up, and we all have teenagers, and they turn on you eventually. But when you get a huge animal, wild animal that turns on you, you can't threaten to take away their allowance. They're liable to eat you.
If you put a backyard pool in the city of Akron, the requirement is that you have a 4-foot fence. that keeps kids from climbing in there. But if you get a black bear in the backyard in the city of Akron, there's really no requirement. You can just put it on a leash. So who needs to take the lead to overhaul this and make us all safer?
The legislators who, in fact, are in Columbus, who are supposed to be passing and enacting laws that will, in fact, protect us. And it's not just protecting us, it's protecting the animals, too. Because don't forget, when he released these animals, the majority of them had to be killed. You know, they couldn't be euthanized. You don't have a sheriff's department that walks around with tranquilizer guns, and the safety of the public had to come first and foremost. So these are animals that, unfortunately, endangered species around the world that had to be killed because they were out and they could, in fact, impact the safety of anybody.
Surprised no people were hurt?
Well, it is true,
yeah.
And it's so unfortunate, like Jody was saying about the animals. And Jack Hanna from the Columbus Zoo, the former director there, who has actually been on national television quite often talking about issues involving zoos and animals, he went down to Zanesville and offered the support and services that the zoo had to provide. But he agreed that, unfortunately, in this situation, this is what had to happen. But it is so sad, like Steve mentioned with the Bengal tigers, there's only 1,400 left in the world. And here they killed, was it 15 or 18?
15 or 18.
And it's so sad. So there needs to be something done to prevent, what happened in Copley in our own backyard here from happening again, what happened down in Zanesville, because it's too bad for the animals, and then it's very scary for the residents, I don't want to look out one day in my backyard and see a lion, roaming by. That would be a little scary.
And the nice thing that happened down in that area is, of course, they put out the alert. They put out signs. They urged all of the people to stay at home. They canceled school so the kids wouldn't be out. So, I mean, the authorities in that county did what had to be done to protect the public, obviously. And the public got the word because, I mean, like Steph said, I wouldn't want to look out in my backyard and see a lion, so you're going to stay in the house.
Governor Kasich is pledging, they have a group of people working on this. The sad thing is they let this temporary executive order expire. And so there was this gap that was created. Why they didn't keep the temporary order in place until they had regulations to go through the legislature, I don't know. Certainly, there are a bunch of groups. Humane Society of the United States will continue to push on this. It's just it's too bad. And Ohio is one of the top. Well, top is probably not the right word, but we're one of the worst states in the nation in our lack of any sort of regulatory framework for this. So that's been apparent for a long time, and it's just one of those things that apparently was not on the governor's front burner. Well, my guess is
it is now.
It is now.
We do have dangerous animals sometimes rotating in from time to time right here in Akron at the Akron Zoo. There are neighborhoods right there. Do we feel comfortable with what we have now protecting
us? We actually, another reporter at the Beacon did a story about that this week, and they go through drills. They have an 8-person team that is on the ready anytime the animals are out in the zoo. They work with the Akron Police Department on what they would do if an animal got loose, and so they're prepared and ready to respond. And I know, the spokesman for the zoo this week said, look, we would always try to tranquilize, but then what we'd be worried about primarily is the public safety, and so if we had to shoot and kill an animal, that's what we would do.
Well, the only other thing I was going to say is Steve is absolutely right. There needs to be some legislation, and it needs to be acted on quickly. But the interesting thing from my perspective is that the people who do have preserves, who do in fact keep on their properties some of the exotic animals, and these are the people who follow the rules, take care of these animals, they're the ones also who are pushing for this because they don't want a thing like this to happen ever again. And the fear, again, is that without some kind of legislation and regulation, we're going to continue to have exotic animals come into the state with no way to know how many are here, how to register them, where to make sure that the public is safe.
True story. About 18 months ago, I heard on the police scanner a lion loose in Akron. Akron police responding. It turned out it was a drill, but they had never said so. They were just, of course, the police all knew this. They didn't think about those of us who listened to the police scanner throughout the day. how quickly through social media I could have broadcast that. And it would have been within my rights of just trying to keep the people safe. Hey, just heard, type it into my computer, just heard there's a lion loose in West Akron. Luckily, I called the police spokesman right away. He said, no, it's a drill. And then from that point forward on the scanner, they kept saying, this is a drill, this is a drill. But it's good to know that they're at least practicing those things, because I think this woke a lot of people up this week, that these things really do happen. I want to talk about whether high technology should play a part in going forward as we move the discussion now to newsnight.net.
For more NewsNight content, including extended discussions, full interviews, and the chance to speak your mind about the issues, join us online at newsnight.net.
It may take wild animals to finally settle the fight between Copley and Fairlawn as the debate over the new Walmart and Sam's Club now heads to a restraining order. Copley preventing Fairlawn from shutting down Rothrock Road. Copley claiming that it's going to impede our emergency forces from getting where they need to go. Fairlawn saying it makes sense for the residents. Jody, is there any end in sight where they're going to be able to find some happy medium?
You know what? I'm not sure because both sides are galvanized for their own position. And we taped the show on Friday morning, and at this particular hour, there is a meeting going on in Fairlawn called by Fairlawn Mayor Bill Roth. With the Copley officials, with Bath officials, with all of the area organizations and communities that could be affected by the closure of the road. Don't forget there was Judge McCarty, Allison McCarty, threw out a suit, I think in September, 2 suits, that would in fact have prevented Fairlawn from closing this road. Now, Fairlawn is in a position where they are afraid if they don't act, not with a permanent gate system, but if they don't act before the spring, which because of the construction season, they can't put up the permanent gate, they're afraid if they don't act with some kind of a temporary barrier that in fact construction could start and then it becomes a moot point. So that's why Fairlawn is in fact acting to put up something and to inform all of the safety forces in the surrounding communities how it would in fact work, how they could in fact get through that gate if they needed to, for safety reasons. Copley then this week files an injunction saying, no, you can't do that, and the meeting is going on now. What's going to happen is anybody's guess. There are so many people who are on both sides of this who are opposed to the issue or for the issue. I'm not sure that there can be a resolution.
Judge McCarty did open the door to negotiations on this, I think, and wisely so. Hers was not a final ruling, but she did permit Fairlawn to go ahead with some sort of gate system. The mayor had said initially, because of the construction season, we're not going to go ahead. Now, Fairlawn has changed its mind, and they're going to studying some sort of temporary barricade. They don't want this to drag on, and they don't have anything in place. So that Copley countersues. But I thought McCarty basically said in her decision, this gate system is a really dumb idea, in so many words. I mean, that's not exactly what she said, but that was the impact of it. And to me, and I'm like a broken record on this, but I'm going to say it one more time. This is the classic example of non-planning in a suburban setting. This is an example of what happens when you have a bunch of different communities in a region who don't work together. You get these zoning decisions by individual entities. This Copley zoning has been in place forever. And then you are in a mess. You have a mess. And I agree with Jody. I don't think there's any easy way out of this, given the facts on the ground, given the configuration of those roads. If you shut off Rothrock Road, there's going to be a tremendous volume of traffic that's diverted to the north. It's going to have to come off 18, which is already a mess. Anybody that drives up there knows. So, and there's no way to bulldoze some kind of new road in that area. I mean, it's built up, and so you have these.
And it's bound by the freeway on the one side, so you can't do that. And Steve's absolutely right. The zoning is in place for this to happen, but it's the kind of thing where you've got Copley on one side of the road and Fairlawn on the other side of the road, and you've got it zoned commercial on the one side, and you've got residential over on this side, and it's just an indication of communities not working together in an overall good land use plan.
And again, we're talking about the new super center, super Walmart that's going to go in, along with a Sam's Club in an area that's just now open. But if that's going to happen anyway, is Fairlawn just adding obstacles for what's going to be an inevitable new construction?
You know what, I have
we reached that point?
Mayor Roth has never said these words directly. So I really don't want to put words in his mouth. But I think in terms of a bargaining chip, this is a good. It is a bargaining chip, in my opinion. You threaten to put this gate system up. It's not a huge expense. It can be taken down easily. It's not, it's not permanent. Maybe not easily, but it would cost, I think, several $100,000 to disassemble it, which would be too bad. I think the judge noted that in her decision as well. But what I'm saying is, you throw this out there and you make the other side wince and see what you can get.
And don't forget, Mayor Roth is doing his best to help the residents who have come to him as the leader of the city and said, we don't want this in our neighborhood. Help us to stop and prevent this from going in and to change the entire flavor of the neighborhood where we have our homes, where we have some businesses. On the other hand, you've got the Copley trustees who are also between a rock and a hard place, because if it's zoned a certain way, they open themselves up to some liability if a developer is prevented from doing what he would like to do on land that is zoned the way it is. What's going to happen is anybody's guess.
Yeah, this is not land that's just now open.
Right.
This is land that's been open.
Well, while they try to establish a partnership, the University Park Alliance announced a new partnership this week, one that they think is really going to benefit that continued development. And the University Park Alliance, Jody, is a good news story any day of the week with the success they've had. Who is this new partner and what does it mean?
The new partner is KUD International. They are an international development real estate firm that helps communities put together packages with financing, with developers, to bring projects to fruition. They've been responsible for an aquarium in Long Beach that has turned around the city of Long Beach's inner city. They're responsible for baseball stadiums and soccer stadiums. And it was an interesting press conference this week when one of the principals of KUD came in and spoke to a group of people at University Park Alliance. Because I was very gratified to hear him say that, number one, KUD looks for vital. They want a plan that's vital, they want a community that's vital, but they also look for, in fact, a community where partnerships and collaboration play an important role. KUD also has said, Marvin I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, Suomi, came in and said that the KUD, when they do come into a project, they don't leave it. They're there for the duration of it, and they could in fact be the catalyst that brings to fruition some outside developers, but they also said they want to work with the local developers, and I think what this does is it puts the whole plan, this whole crossroads plan that University Park Alliance is kind of spearheading in a 50-block area to revitalize not only their area but all of downtown in essence, with the biomedical corridor and the canals and the hospitals. I think what this is going to do is raise that ante to a much higher plane. So I was really gratified to see this, and I think it's great news for the entire region, if not just the city.
You talk about the University Park Alliance, though. They've had tremendous success, and you see what's growing around the university over there. I'm still amazed, aren't you guys? That
Yeah, it's changed so much since I've been in Akron, which is about 13 years, and the university, the Exchange Street area there has just been completely transformed. And so, good things have been happening, and it sounds like they're going to continue to happen over there.
Yeah, it is. It's quite a development. I want to see what they do, but it was great to see the partnership announced this week. Thanks for, we'll talk about that in the days to come here on NewsNite.
On NewsNite.net, we cover a broader range of topics than we can on the air in 27 minutes. Be part of the conversation on our Facebook page and at newsnight.net.
It is the one and only time we'll see Mayor Don Plisquellic and challenger Jennifer Hensel on the same stage. A few weeks before the election, they'll have their one and only debate coming up on Monday. Stephanie, is there much to learn about either of them at this point that we don't already know?
Well, I think that most people don't know much about Jennifer Hensel. And so, for those who may be curious about her, this is going to be, one of the only opportunities that they're going to get to hear from her. I met with her earlier this week for a story I'm doing on the race, and she said that this is the largest group of people that she's going to be in front of. So during the campaign so far. So this obviously is not quite as exciting of a race as the primary was between the mayor and Mike Williams. But we do still have a race here, and so we've, going to have the opportunity to hear from the two of them. I understand that the Akron Press Club sold about 250 tickets, the capacity that they can get into the Martin Center at the university. So we'll get to, see these two go head-to-head here.
So does she spend her time on the offensive, attacking the mayor, or in introducing herself to people who really don't know much about her? What does she best use her time?
Debates in our political system are usually not debates in the sense that the candidates don't directly question each other. And
although they did get to have the question at the end during the primary, which was quite interesting.
Yeah, which was great.
They're not going to have that.
That's not going to happen this time. So I think for Jennifer Hensel, she gets a platform literally on the same level as the mayor. She gets to appear for whatever, an hour or so, as mayoral or quasi-mayoral. So what she needs to do, in my opinion, is it's pointless for her to attack the mayor. I think what she needs to do is to present herself and her ideas, and she has a few, in a positive way. And clearly, she wants to be a judge someday. She applied for a judicial vacancy earlier, and the party basically advised her, gee, if you would like to be appointed to a judicial vacancy, that means you must run at some point to retain your seat. Might be a good idea if you had some electoral experience under your belt, if you'd run for office. So she ran for mayor. I mean, she's not run for office before. She's not held office before. In that sense, she's not a very credible candidate. But she can stand up there and present her ideas, and I would advise her, if I were advising her, not to be too negative, and let it go and come back, live to fight another day. So
what does the mayor say, Jody? What does he have to gain through all of this?
Again, exposure. He's got to be careful. He's got to present what he has done throughout his campaign, the primary campaign, and his previous campaigns. Is all he's got to do is stand on his record. And it's a pretty solid and good record. He can't come out and attack her in any way, shape, or form. There's no need to. It's a Democratic stronghold, this city is, and I don't think there's going to be a problem. I would caution the Democrats, though, to be very careful, because any time you just assume that you are, in fact, going to be able to retain a seat or win an election is when you get lackadaisical. And what happens then is you don't get the voters out. And what the Democrats have to make sure is, even though it may not look like much of a race, they do still have to get the Democrats out, or the supporters of the mayor out, to vote for him on Election Day.
And I don't think they're going to make that mistake again. I mean, they kind of made that mistake again in the Finley primary, and I just don't see him making that mistake again. And I think the mayor does have plenty to talk about and plenty to remind people about. I think he also needs to look forward. He's got another 4 years ahead of him. I think he needs to remind voters of what his ideas are for moving forward, moving the city forward. Economic development and jobs is a big piece of this. He's had, one press conference after another about these developments, bringing new things into town, new things happening. He's taken some flack over that. But if you have something to say, I would argue, if you're a public official these days in Northeast Ohio and you have anything to say about any kind of new job in any way, shape, or form, hold a press conference, because that's what people want to hear. This is his strong suit. I mean, the negative side of Pasquale, because he's been around a long time, he's made some enemies. People are angry at him. He's angry at people. And this was sort of the Mike Williams mantra that he's got so much baggage that he can no longer function effectively. And I think what the mayor needs to remind people is, I may be abrasive at times, but I've also delivered for you, and I have more ideas on how to deliver and how to move the city and how to create jobs.
So if the numbers game shows that this race is for the most part over, although you never take anything for granted for either side, what will bring people to the polls on November 8th? Is it Issue 2, the Senate Bill 5 repeal? Is it Issue 14, the Akron Public Schools levy? Is it Issue 25, the Board of DD? Which is the issue? What is going to bring people to the polls on November 8th in Akron?
Well, traditionally, you don't have a very high turnout during these municipal elections. That's just, it goes presidential and then the statewide and then the municipal. So, but I do think that you're going to draw interest because of the statewide issues, the Senate Bill 5 and the health care Most people don't realize there's another issue on there about the age of judges. And then I think a lot of people do care about the school levy, and most people probably, haven't paid as much attention to the DD levy. But I think the issues is what's going to get people out this time.
Yeah, State Issue 2, which is a referendum on Senate Bill 5. This is very, very high stakes politics for the Democratic coalition, not just for public employee unions. They're obviously fired up. But this is a multi-million-dollar television campaign that's just. I read this week that another poll indicated that the gap is widening. That it looked like things had been tightening up a little bit on Issue 2, and now this latest survey shows like a 20-point defeat for Senate Bill 5. And that's what the Democrats want. I mean, they want to thump
throttle.
And this sends a message to Kasich and his buddies, including Shannon. Help me out, Shannon Jones, the state senator from Springboro, and others. That you attacked us. We're coming back at you. We're coming back at you in 2012 in the presidential race. And we're going to continue coming at you.
20 seconds, Jody. What brings people out?
I think Issue 2. No question about it. There's been so much rhetoric about it on television, on radio. I think people come out. But I think in Akron also it'll be the school board race, which, it's kind of a no-brainer at this point because there's only 2 people running for the 3 seats, although there's writing candidates. And I think the levy in Akron will bring people out.
We'll be talking more about Issue 14 next week when we're joined by a representative of the Akron schools. Jody, Steve, Stephanie, thank you so much, and thanks for being with us. Again, you can watch the entire broadcast again and our extended editions at newsnight.net. Have a great week, everybody. See you next Friday for Newsnight. Good night.